Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Happy Wife School show. I hope everyone's having a good day or a good evening so far. I'm happy to be here and just getting everything set up on my side, and we will be good to go. Today, we are going to do a Q&A, and one of the questions is the title of the live of how often is it reasonable to expect my wife to have sex? And that's one of the first questions that we will get into today. I got to play around here. The sun in my office, of course, as we go through the year, changes how it comes through. So if I lean forward like this, I can see like the sun on my forehead. So I have to watch that today. But if you guys can tell me in the chat that I'm coming through, you can hear me, see me, everything's good. And then thank you to Phil, Evo, and Steve keeping an eye on the chat today and being the best moderators on YouTube. I appreciate you guys so much. Evo's going to be sending me some questions at the end. I've got a lot to cover today, so I'll see how many of those I can cover at the end because I need to wrap up at the top of the hour. At noon my time here in Colorado. So we'll see what time is left at the end to answer some questions. But Evo will be taking those and sending them to me, and it helps him if you can put them in throughout the live show so he can collect them and not have to try to find them all at the end when the chat's scrolling and it's difficult to pick those questions out. So thank you so much, Evo, for doing that. Before we get started, just a couple of things. TheHappyWifeSchool.com is live, so please go check it out. And also, if you like to watch these shows, the live show, if you like to listen to it in a podcast format, go check out The Happy Wife School on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And then also, my wonderful, wonderful assistant, Chelsea, made some really, really great playlists of the videos to put them in to some groupings of for good men and where to start, and for women who want to change, where you can start. So please go check those out as well. And then finally, before I get into the questions for today, please go check out my colleague and dear friend Josie's YouTube channel. She's recently changed the name to Beyond Remission, a new era of permanent healing. You can find the link in the description below. If you have a chronic illness like depression or anxiety or ADD or ADHD or chronic pain, or an autoimmune disease like fibromyalgia or Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, then you want to go check out Josie's website. If you've been to doctors and alternative health practitioners and nothing is working, Josie teaches people how to permanently heal and resolve chronic illness and autoimmune by working on their emotional state. And she's amazing. She actually just went live before me today and did an incredible episode. So you want to go watch that, give Josie some support. And if that's you, then she's a wonderful, wonderful person to connect with and learn more about her courses. So with all that being said, let's get into the Q&A. I've got 3 questions that I'm answering today that I have found in the comments, and also people submitting questions to me through the link in the description. If you have a question and you want to submit that to me, you can, and I use those for the Q&As currently. And just a small setup that these are going to be answered through the perspective of the principles that I teach on the Happy Wife School. I haven't talked to any of these people or know the specifics or ins and outs of their relationship or marriage, that they have given me a point of discussion to answer these questions and talk about some different concepts and reinforce some of the concepts that I already teach on the channel. And I just realized I never looked to see, can you hear me? Am I coming through okay? But it looks like I'm all right. Uh, just gonna scroll up. Oh, great comment. Thanks, Peter. Yep, we're pushing to 165 subscribers, which is fantastic. There's Phil's message to me coming through loud and clear. Thank you so much. And just welcome to Tia and Luke and Ben and Dave, just naming out the names I can see here. Mike, always good to have you guys and see some familiar names. So let's get going. So the first question I am going to answer today really goes to the title, How Often Should Your Wife Have Sex with You? And the question that I received was, how often is it reasonable? What's a reasonable expectation for a married couple to have sex? So knowing that, in general, sex is one of the most important things to a good man in a marriage or a relationship. It's easily going to be in his top 3 of what's most important to him. And for a woman, it might not even make our list of top 10 of what's important to us in a marriage. We really, as I have said before, do this when it comes to sex. We just are wired differently. That is the reality. So given that information, understanding we are wired differently, what I teach is a healthy and reasonable expectation and amount of sex for a married couple to have is committing to once a week. Once a week is a reasonable and healthy amount for a married couple to have sex. Again, remembering we are wired differently. So you're asking your wife, who as a woman generally isn't wired to want sex as much as you do as a man, it isn't reasonable to ask her to have sex more than once a week. Doesn't mean you might not like it more. You might like it multiple times a week and have a higher sex drive and want it more. But once a week is a reasonable framework for a couple to come together and agree to. And there are some women who might want it more than once a week. And this is where you come together as a couple. But if you are challenged, as most married couples are, with sex and being on the same page, this is a very reasonable framework for a couple to come together and agree to and work toward together. So for men who might not like that answer, here's an example. It's like shopping, okay? That in general, as women, we like to shop. And some women could and do, according to some of the men that I work with and talk to, could shop daily. And some do. So I talk with men that they're getting, Amazon boxes delivered every day to their house. But in general, as women, we really enjoy shopping. So you wanting, if you have a higher drive, and you're married to a typical woman who has a lower drive and is disengaged from sex or doing sex as a chore or obligation, you wanting your wife to have sex every day or multiple times a week is like her asking you to go shopping with her every day or multiple times a week. So that's a good example and analogy to think about in this, so that you can remember the ultimate goal of what I teach in marriage and understanding our differences as men and women is the ultimate goal is having a dance. It is unrealistic and impossible that as a married couple and as a man and a woman, you are going to be on the same page about everything like sex, or agree and have the same outlook and the same opinion and the same expectations of something in a marriage. That's not reasonable. It's not realistic. It's just not reality. So what I teach, and the ultimate goal being the dance in a marriage, it's not about getting on the same page or being the exact same and having the exact same opinions or ideas about how something should go in a marriage like sex. It's about an acceptance and a tolerance of each other and our differences. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. The ultimate goal of marriage and having the dance isn't about being on the same page and being the exact same. It's about an acceptance and a tolerance of each other in our differences so we can work together and find the dance and find what works through those differences. And that's why I've come to and teach that once a week is a reasonable and healthy amount of sex for a married couple to come together and have a dance and those differences as men and women around sex. So I want to talk a little bit now in response to this question, and this is for the ladies who struggle and are shut down and disengaged to sex or having sex as a should or an obligation or a chore. I want to talk to the women about how to commit to yourself to having sex once a week and your husband, as a good man, getting that benefit. So, ladies, as I've talked about before, we have to learn to enjoy sex for ourselves. The reason that sex becomes a chore or an obligation is because we've never learned to have and enjoy sex for ourselves as the experience of a lovely and wonderful experience to have as a human being. And also what sex gives us a context and a mirror into ourselves as women and getting to know the wonderful qualities of ourselves as women, that we are soft, nurturing, lovely, sensual. When we are having sex because we feel that we have to, and it is an obligation and meaning more of a chore to our husbands, and we're disconnected and checked out and disengaged, but making ourselves do it, then that's where we become resentful and live in camp victim as women in our marriage around sex. So we have to learn that sex is a healthy part of a marriage, and it is a healthy and beautiful experience that we can have of ourselves as women and individuals, so that you're doing it for you. That's the only way to resolve the resentment or it feeling like a chore and a checklist in your marriage. We have to understand this is a very important and intimate way to connect as a couple and to share something together that we can only share with that other person. And it's a very nice experience to have. I often tell women, I've never not been in the mood necessarily to have sex and slowed down and reminded myself, this is a gift I give myself and my husband. And in making that choice to engage and keep to my commitment in my marriage, never have I not been in the mood and made the choice. It's just a simple choice we make to step into that loving, intimate experience of sex with my husband, gotten done and thought, man, I really wish I hadn't done that. It's always like, oh, I'm so glad that I showed up for myself and showed up for my husband. And then I feel connected to myself afterward. I feel connected to my husband and feel good about myself. And it's part of our responsibility in a marriage. So re-engaging and committing to having sex once a week, you want to literally sit down and talk about this as a couple. And to know that yes, having sex and having it come up spontaneously as it did in the beginning of the relationship can be fun, but it's not realistic in a marriage where you have a woman and a man and we're wired so differently, as I talk about. You actually want to sit down and agree and set a time and schedule it so that it is known. And within that, there can be spontaneity and keeping it fresh and new each time so it does not become rote. But when you know the general time and day, that works for both of you, and you talk about that and come to an agreement, it takes the guesswork out of it. And this is incredibly important when you are married to a good man who you have been withholding sex or rejecting his advances to initiate sex. That creates a fear and intimidation, unknown for a good man of, they're not mind readers, as I talk about. It takes the guesswork out of them of, if is she going to be in the mood if I initiate? Is she going to reject me again? So when you have a general day and time that you agree to, then it's known. And you know, this is when we connect in this way as a couple. And if something comes up, you know, you go on a trip or someone is sick and under the weather or has the flu, then don't just wait another week until that general scheduled time that you have together. It's just, that's life. Things come up. Then you want to pick another day. Okay, it didn't work for us today, but hey, can we get up a little early on this day? Or can we make sure, you know, we get the kids to bed a little early on this night and come together so you're not skipping a week? Because what that tells your husband, if something comes up and the time that you've agreed to doesn't work and then you just ignore it, you're sending the message to your husband that this isn't important to you. And you're doing it as a checklist and feeling kind of like, all right, didn't have to this week. He feels that. So you want to take the initiative and step up to the plate to say, okay, it didn't work out for us tonight. So when's another day this week that we can commit to? And you go in having it be fresh and new, not doing it as a checklist, by knowing this is a gift you give yourself and something that you do for yourself, and your husband gets the benefit, your marriage gets the benefit. So it's a commitment you make to yourself and to your husband in the marriage and follow through with, which will make you feel really good about yourself, which is the foundation of what I talk about, having a healthy relationship with yourself and being happy. Here's the thing. It's really this simple. If you want to have sex and enjoy it, this structure will work. And you will follow through. You will make it work. You will look at whatever you need to look at and what comes up in you and your resistance or not wanting to do it. You will work through it and follow through and keep your word. And you and your husband can have a healthy, loving sex life. If you want to have excuses and push it away, you will. And you will continue to have issues, and sex will continue to be the elephant in the room in your marriage. And your husband will suffer, and you won't feel good about yourself, and you won't have a marriage. You will have a roommate situation. Healthy couples have healthy sex lives. It is a healthy part of a marriage and part of the responsibility and commitment we made in getting married. So again, if you want it to work and you want to have sex and enjoy it, you will commit to it and follow through with it, and it can become a non-issue in your marriage. But if you want to push it away, continue to live in your stories and excuses, you will push it away. Again, it will continue to be the problem in the relationship and part of what's destroying you and destroying your husband. All right, so that's the first question. So that leads to the next question. These kind of all go together in an interesting way. But the next question, that is the flip side of a woman not committing to sex and following through and keeping her word in a marriage, and our woman ways that I talk about in sex of how we will cut sex off from our husbands, withhold, use sex as a punishment and a weapon in the marriage. These are the themes and principles and issues that I talk about in my videos and the channel. Someone asked in one of those videos that if all of this is true about how shut down we become to sex, how we treat our husbands with sex in the marriage and in withholding and cutting sex off, the question was, if this is true, how can I see a woman in a positive light? If all of these things that I talk about on the channel and how women disengage from sex and treat sex in a marriage, if all of this is true, how can I see women in a positive light? Really good question. And thank you for that question, because this is something that over the years, as I've been working on myself and working with other women and seeing these issues and patterns and behaviors play out in marriages and play out in myself, I have grappled with this question, that if these woman ways that I discuss and have known and seen in myself, if this is our wiring as women, and I have all of this potential in me left unchecked to be cruel, emasculating, selfish, walled off, controlling, I've asked how do I see myself as a woman in a positive light? How do I see other women in a positive light? So I understand this question, and it's really good and a really important one in terms of what I talk about on the channel, because I'm not here to bash women or make women wrong or bad. I'm here to help women to wake up to these issues we have on a spectrum in our wiring, so we can create the self-awareness around them and be in control of our emotional state and our patterns and behaviors, and have successful relationships and marriages with good men. I'm here to wake women up. That's why part of the title of my channel is The Red Pill for Women. It's here to empower women. And the tough reality is that to be able to overcome these issues that we have as women, we have to be honest about them and see them and shine the light on them. We have to see the truth. That's how we grow. We don't grow by seeing the good things about ourselves. We grow exponentially by seeing the limitations and flaws and shortcomings in ourselves, so we can take responsibility for them, grow and learn from them, and use them as a path to becoming the best version of ourselves that we can be. I can't be the best version of myself that I can be without understanding and being honest with myself and taking responsibility for my flaws and my shortcomings as a woman. It's only from that place that I can catch myself, see what's happening inside of me, and make another choice. That happens. I tell you guys often, I am not perfect. I make mistakes. And I have these woman ways, but I'm in control of them. And I stumble and I make mistakes because I'm human. But it's through the understanding my wiring as a woman that I can catch myself and see them. Happens all the time in my marriage. Happened last night. My husband had something go wrong that's a bigger issue with his truck. And he was telling me about it. And did I want to give advice and just get in there and tell him what he should do? But I understand that in myself as a woman, so I could see it playing out inside of me. And then it was a conversation with myself of absolutely not, Karen, zip it. Now is the time to zip it. Just zip it. He knows what he's going to do. He knows the path he wants to take to solve this. Zip it. And I did, but I couldn't do that if I didn't understand myself as a woman. So none of this is to paint women in a negative light or a bad light. It's to help us understand ourselves and to help men understand what's happening so they can break out of the brainwashing that happens when we've convinced you that you are the problem. So furthermore, in answering how do you see women in a positive light if everything I talk about on the channel is true, the angle I would like to take next is I want to talk about the reality of life. I want to talk about the reality of life to help men accept and understand and embrace the reality of women and how we behave in relationships and marriages, so that you are not a victim, that you as a man are not living in camp victim, angry and bitter and jaded at women, because that is not a constructive place to be. So we want to talk a little bit about the reality of life and just our human nature, both as women and men, of what we want life to be that is not a reality. And then I'm going to tie it in. So how does this apply to how do you see women in a positive light? So the truth is that as humans, we want life to be this, just a straight line, no interruptions, to get everything just so life works and nothing rocks the boat. It's just a reality, because we want everything to fit in this nice little box of life and be in control of how we experience life. We don't want anything to disrupt our status quo and throw things off kilter. So unknowingly, we live in a comfort zone. Essentially what I just described, our human nature of wanting life to be a straight line and not having anything rock the boat. As humans, we create a comfort zone in our lives so that we don't have to go out into life and face the unknowns. Our comfort zone protects us from the unknowns of life. But a comfort zone really is a misnomer. It's not a comfortable place to be at all. Living in that comfort zone creates a very small, limited life, and it puts us into camp victim automatically, because living in a comfort zone, we are always protecting ourselves from anything happening that's going to disrupt us or make life uncomfortable or cause us to go through adversity and go through challenges. So when those adversities and challenges do come, we feel that life is happening to us and something is being put onto us that we can't handle and disrupting our lives. And that's how then we live in camp victim, blaming our external world, blaming the circumstances of our life for the experience we have of ourselves, which renders us incapable of changing. And that's where we live as humans. The reality of life, if we slow down and think of it, and we all know this, the reality of life is that it is full of challenges and adversities. It's full of injustices. It's full of loss, of things we couldn't expect. And so life, instead of being a straight line, truly is like a mountain with peaks and valleys. And life looks like those mountains and those peaks and valleys where we don't know what's around the corner that's going to push us, that's going to challenge us, that's going to create turmoil and what we have to work through to get to the other side. And we can think there's all kinds of challenges that come up in life for us, such as losing a parent or losing a child, financial trouble and hardships, things like a presidential election, natural disasters. Bless anyone in Southern California suffering from the fires and having lost their homes, or those in North Carolina and the mountains that got affected by the hurricanes and the winds and catastrophic flooding. Getting fired from a job or losing a job, starting a business and having it fail, going through a divorce. What we never do as humans, and have never really known to do, is to slow down and realize we all go through these kinds of challenges. Everyone goes through loss. Everyone goes through life. And this is what life looks like. It is a series of things we couldn't expect or anticipate that push us and cause us to get out into the unknown. And understanding the reality of life, it gives us a choice. We can fight reality and push life into a box so we can feel like we are in control, which we're actually totally out of control, and live in camp victim, and pushing the reality of life away and trying to push life into a box is what creates life to be a struggle and to be hard and feel unfair and causes our resentment and our hurt and our bitterness. Or, that being one choice, or the other choice, we can learn to embrace the reality of life and know that life is going to be a series of challenges and issues and adversities and injustices and losses. Instead of running away and wanting it to be different than what it is, we embrace the challenges to grow and learn and build resilience to life. Resilience being the ability to bounce back from the challenges and adversities. When we build that resilience and we embrace the challenges of life to grow and learn, then we can actually see the gifts in those challenges and how it caused us to grow, or a different path it set us on. And we get on the other side and we can look back and actually feel grateful that we went through that challenge and understand its purpose in our own personal growth and in our lives. That is Camp Take Responsibility. Choosing to embrace the reality of life and embracing those challenges to grow and learn. Again, that is Camp Take Responsibility. So how does this relate to the reality of a woman and the reality of a wife? And that on a spectrum, we have these issues and behaviors that I talk about on my channel. That we have a selfishness, and we are emasculating and manipulative and lack accountability in a marriage or relationship with a man. This is a reality, and that's why I like to talk about it on a spectrum. We have these issues because not all women, or the majority of women, are actually even going to be on that high-end spectrum. And within the spectrum of which we lie in these woman ways, a good man still sees the wonderful qualities of his wife. Even though we have these behaviors and challenges as women, there are very, very wonderful qualities to who we are. And I'll talk a little bit more in a bit of women. We can know these issues in ourselves, see them and overcome them and make different choices. But for the men, you do not want to be in camp victim. You do not want to be in camp victim, wanting women to be something other than who they are, or to create a struggle and a fight against who we are and can be as women. When you fight against it and you create that struggle, or you want women or your wife to be something other than what it is, that is what creates the anger, the bitterness, the being jaded, being resentful, which is actually what a lot of influencers in the red pill community and the manosphere want and fearmonger men to be, is jaded and angry and bitter and seeing women as monsters and the end all be all to their lives. That's camp victim. And you don't want to be there. You want to go into Camp Take Responsibility, where you can embrace the reality of how women are and can be, and use them as your greatest teacher to expose the weaknesses and limitations in yourself. How do you as a man allow a woman to manipulate and control you and emasculate you and lack accountability in the relationship? What is your part and role that has created that monster in your marriage or relationship? It doesn't excuse her behavior, but it's a constructive path to look at, what is that in me? so that you can be empowered to overcome that in yourself and strengthen yourself. Do you want to be a victim, or do you want to live and can't take responsibility? Because women aren't going to change. Women aren't going to change. We have been this way for thousands of years. I often like to talk about the quote from Solomon, which is, I would rather sleep on the pitch of a roof than in a room with a quarreling wife. And there's many versions of that. But that alone lets me know, along with lots and lots of other examples from history, that women have always been this way. And we live in these behaviors and patterns on a spectrum. So in spite of our woman ways and where we might lie on that spectrum, underneath those behaviors are wonderful qualities that we have. And even in the midst of our woman ways, and this is the hallmark of a good man, oh my goodness, I'll get men sharing with me of the awful things their wives have done in their relationship, yet they still see the wonderful qualities that their wives have, and often don't see their wives as bad people or in a negative light. They're struggling and they don't know what to do with what's happening. So you want to accept the reality of women and the behaviors we can have and how we show up. But also, as a good man, you're wired to focus on the positive. So you don't want to lose sight. For some of you, you are married to women on a high spectrum and of these woman ways, and it's very, very, very difficult to see any good. And that's a reality. And that's where you have to, as I talk about, know your values and make a choice. But for many of you, in spite of how your wife can behave and show up, you still see really good things about her, and you have to see and know the reality, but also keep a pulse on the positive things and the good things that are there. So this leads into the next question. And before that, I have to take a sip of water. So the next question that ties into this, I have to look at this here, so is, I copied the wrong question, guys. Oh my goodness. I love it. It's all right. I have another copy here. Here we go. I have to laugh at myself. All right. So the next question is, what would your sales pitch for marriage be? I imagine a lot of men in your audience feel disillusioned with marriage and have reached the conclusion that marriage is too dangerous and too troublesome to be worth it. What could you tell such men to restore their faith in marriage? That's a lovely, lovely, well thought out question, and I'm very happy someone asked that and gave me the opportunity to use that as a talking point and discussion point, because this is a pro-marriage channel. Even though I talk about the challenges and the cruelty we can have as women and as wives, I am pro-marriage because I am a woman on the other side of those woman ways and understanding myself as a woman, and teach other women to take that same path. I often say, if I can do it, anyone can do it if they want to and want to take that path and want to change. And to me, that was part of marriage, and the lesson of marriage was having all of those behaviors and shortcomings and flaws in me as a woman get shaken up so that I could grow through them and overcome them, understand myself, know myself, and see the beauty in who I am as a woman and the qualities I have just in who I am as Karen as a woman. My marriage was the mirror and context for that. And it was for my husband as well, which I'm going to talk a little bit at the end of my answer to this question, what he has gotten and what he would say out of our marriage. But my sales pitch for marriage, where I want to start, step one, and this is more to men who aren't married and maybe watch my channel or want to get married but are seeing what I talk about and feeling, oh man, maybe I don't want to go in that direction. So step one is you have to stop listening to the manosphere and influencers and people or men in the comments that try to tell you marriage is dangerous and too troublesome to be worth it. You have to stop buying into their fear mongering on why you shouldn't get married. If it is a value to you and an important step that you take in your life, which no one can tell you what your values are, but that being a husband, being a dad, having a family is important to you, and that is a value to you in your life, you have to hold on to that and do not listen to influencers or other people or other men tell you that it's not worth it and that it's too dangerous. You have to know, no, this is important to me, and I want to give you a healthy framework of how you can have a successful marriage in spite of the woman ways that we have. So the sales pitch is really, do you want to live in Camp Victim? Or do you want to live in Camp Take Responsibility? Do you want to live in Camp Victim, or do you want to live in Camp Take Responsibility? The reality is that risk is inherent in almost everything we do in life. Risk is an inherent part of life. There's risk in the different careers that we pick. So especially for men choosing to be a firefighter, choosing to be a cop, choosing to go in the military is inherent with risk. Being an entrepreneur and starting a business, investing in the stock market, taking out loans or borrowing money for different endeavors that we have in life, different activities that we engage in, such as mountain climbing or riding a motorcycle or downhill skiing or ice climbing. There's risk inherent in everything in life. Marriage is just another option we have in life that inherent within that is risk. We don't want to isolate marriage as a singular risky endeavor because it's just another option we have in life that has risk. And that allows you to normalize the risk within it and plan for it. Just as in starting a business or taking out a loan or investing in the stock market, you can't be naive to the risks that are there. So you can't be naive to the risks that there are in marriage. Like any of the other life options we have, activities we engage in, you have to do your homework so that you can plan for the risks of marriage. So just as in, say that you're a mountain climber and you prefer winter climbing, or even in late fall or early summer here in Colorado, you have to do the same kind of homework. I have to know what are the conditions in the mountain? What's the ice? Where's the snow? What's the avalanche risk? Who am I climbing with? Who's going up with me? What's the education that we need, the skill set that we need to build? What are the tools that we need? What do we have to foresee and plan for that could go wrong? So you're minimizing the risk within it and planning for it so you don't get caught in the known dangers unprepared. Because that is where it becomes dangerous. So it's the same with marriage. How do you minimize the risks and not get caught in the known dangers unprepared? I want to give you 5 ways and 5 things that you need to plan for the risks of marriage if this is of value to you. And I will also say, I think this is important. Marriage isn't for everyone. I'm not here saying every single person should get married. It's a value and something one has to decide for themselves that they want. Just like college isn't for everybody. Owning a business and starting a business and being an entrepreneur isn't for everybody. I would never recommend that every person should have a business or every person should go to college. So marriage isn't for everyone. This is a roadmap for men who do want to get married, and it is a value so that you don't get fear-mongered that you shouldn't do it if this is something that's important to you. And I want to give you a positive perspective on marriage because there's way too much negative out there. And again, way too much fear-mongering when this can be a wonderful part of life and an incredible growth opportunity. So 5 ways to plan for the risk of marriage for men who it is a value and a life option that's important to them. Number 1, make sure the woman you are choosing is on the low end spectrum of the woman ways that I talk about. You want to find a low maintenance woman who, relatively speaking, is emotionally stable. I'm going to go watch episode 45 of the live shows, How to Find a Good Woman. And you can also find that on Spotify and Apple as well if you prefer the podcast version. So that's number 1. And I go much more in depth into that episode. So that's why I want to point you there. But make sure the woman you are choosing is on the low end spectrum of the woman ways, which means she's more low maintenance and, relatively speaking, is generally emotionally stable. Number 2 of how to plan for the risks of marriage so you minimize the risk. Number 2, love is not what makes a marriage work. Love is not what makes a marriage work. Believing love is what makes a marriage work is dangerous. You must see that marriage is what happens when the love, in quotations, because I'm talking about the romantic love we feel in the beginning where we get the butterflies and it's the newness of the relationship. And unfortunately for men, women have put the spell on you and they've roped you in and you get caught in that fantasy of love. So you must see that marriage is what happens when the love fades away. That's when the real work comes in. And so love isn't going to be what determines if a marriage is going to work. Again, that's a dangerous belief. It is the character of the woman you marry that determines the risk you are going to encounter. It is the character of the woman that you marry that is going to determine the risk you encounter in the marriage. For example, a woman who is a low emotionally functioning woman, which again I talk about in episode 45, but a woman who is a low emotionally functioning woman, meaning she's got baggage from her past, wears her victim story on her sleeve, has the stories of how she was mistreated by ex-boyfriends and past relationships, the trauma that's happened to her in her life. These are the women that you're going to have a high risk with in a marriage because they are not going to be low maintenance and generally emotionally stable because of the baggage they have and their inability to control their emotional state. So you have to watch for the red flags and don't think with your other head. You have to be pragmatic and practical about the woman you want to marry. Number 3 of how to plan for the risks of marriage. Number 3, have a prenup. You have to be aware and be in the reality that marriage has financial risk. And depending on the type of woman you are marrying, you can have a large financial risk. So a prenup is a tool to minimize that risk. And contrary to what you might have heard about prenups, if you do it right and you have a good attorney, they are very effective. Secondly, they're a great screening tool for a woman with high character, because a woman with high character will sign a prenup. A woman with low character will not want to sign a prenup. So that's number 3. Number 4 of how to plan for the risk of marriage. Have the woman you are thinking of marrying watch my videos. Again, it's a screening tool and minimizes the risk. A woman on the low end of the spectrum of woman ways is going to be willing to look at herself and be accountable and know these are the things she needs to know about herself and see in herself going into a marriage. If she's not open or willing, then you are in trouble, because she will not want to look at herself, and she will blame you for the issues and problems in the marriage, and things will be very messy and the risk will be very great. But if she watches and she can see herself and take accountability, then you know she has high character. And number 5, how to plan for the risk of marriage. You must enter marriage and camp take responsibility. You must enter marriage and camp take responsibility knowing you are marrying a woman. Then if you marry a woman on the low end spectrum of the woman ways, she's still going to be a woman. So you have to use her as your greatest teacher. Again, what is it about me that can allow a woman to emasculate me, gaslight me, control me, manipulate me? And what do I need to do and learn as a man to not allow her to suck me into those games and cause me to lose myself and my sense of being a man? That you know I'm making this choice. I'm making the choice to get married. I'm marrying a woman, and it might not work out. It's really important. That's why any risk we take in life, any job we go into, a career we choose, mountain climbing, being an entrepreneur, we have to take responsibility. I am making this choice. No one's making me. So the challenges that come up, the obstacles that come up, the risk that it might not work out. And if it doesn't work out, I have to take responsibility knowing this is my choice. No one made me do it. So I'm going to grow and learn through it. So when you do these 5 things to plan for the risk of marriage, here's the value of marriage in my sales pitch. The next part of my sales pitch is it's a wonderful place to grow and learn. When you put these 5 things into place. Oh, and I forgot, I had a 5A as well. Take my course. Take my course so you have an education on understanding the dynamics you're going to have with a woman in a marriage on a spectrum, and have the woman you want to marry take my course so you guys can have the dance and know how to navigate the reality of marriage. Just as in the reality of life, marriage isn't a straight line. There's nothing you're going to do to prepare for marriage where everything's just going to go great and nothing's going to go wrong and there's not going to be any challenges or obstacles. It's going to be a mountain. It's going to be a tall mountain. And there's going to be peaks and valleys and lots of ups and downs. It is a series of challenges. You're taking 2 individuals with different shortcomings and different flaws and different ideas and opinions and working together to have a dance. And in that, there's going to be a lot of challenges, and you're going to go through hardships in life that are just a natural part of life. So the benefit and the reason of getting married is our growth in that, and who do we become? And what are we going to learn? And what are we going to get to experience that we would never experience if we hid from marriage as an option in life if it's important to us? So for me, and what marriage has meant to me, and I'll talk a little bit about to Adam, my husband, but my marriage has been my greatest teacher. I wouldn't be here today being able to share and teach others. It has been a path and a journey to deeply know and understand myself as an individual and as a woman, which means it's been a path for me to learn my shortcomings and flaws and how do I overcome them and be in control of them to be the best that I can be. It has opened up for me as a woman the softness and femininity and loveliness of who I am that I needed my husband as a man to shake up the parts of me that are not that, so I could find those wonderful parts. If Adam were here, he would share that it's allowed him to find a strength and confidence in himself as a man. He does not shy away from calling me out or saying, hey, that didn't come out very good and was very demeaning. Could you ask another way? Or you're just being stubborn and defensive right now. And that gives me then the opportunity to be in that dance with him and not make him wrong and bad for being a man and stepping up and calling me out when it needs to happen, which luckily isn't too often. But that's allowed him to grow in his strength and confidence as a man. He would also say, and I would say with him, that it gives a structure. Marriage gives a structure in life to be accountable and to be in control of our shortcomings and flaws, because it's not just us, there's another person. And Adam has expressed that in depth in different conversations that we have, how grateful he is for the accountability and structure of our marriage. And I am as well, because it holds us to a standard that if we didn't have a marriage or weren't together, we wouldn't get to experience, and it would be much harder. But we've grown so much together and so much in ourselves as individuals that we never could have without marriage as the context. And for those of you watching, but does it have to be marriage? Does it have to be a signed piece of paper? It can be a committed relationship and in a long-term committed relationship and view that as a marriage. But for some people, it's going to be important to have that extra measure of commitment. But again, you have to know the risk you're taking in signing that document and having it be a legal contract of marriage. And that's the path my husband and I took back then without knowing any better, but that's the way we took. And I would take it again. And my husband would take it again. So it's a tremendous, tremendous path to grow and learn and be the best that we can be. And if it is important to you, my message is don't shy away from it. Embrace it for the reality it is. Do your homework, plan for it, and step into it, taking responsibility, knowing the risk, and then doing your best and embracing all the challenges that are there to grow and learn and become the best you can be. It is my belief and experience. That is why we are here. We are here to self-actualize. And we do not self-actualize in the easy parts of life. We self-actualize in the challenges, the obstacles, the things that are going to push us into areas we would never push ourselves. And to grow and learn through them, even the hardship, even when it does not work out. So thank you so much for those questions. And then also on a side note, Adam and I are setting a date within the next month. He's going to, he's not coming live. We are going to do a recorded. We talked about it last night. Talked about it with David this morning. I just have to pick the date. Adam and I are going to record, and you will meet him very, very soon. You have my word. It's been a year, and a good year and just Adam went through a lot of changes, and he came back and said, okay, let's do it. We got to do this. So we're setting a date for the next month. For my own accountability, I will let you know next Saturday what date we choose to record and then when I'm going to set it as a premiere on the channel. So just wanted to give you guys that update because some of you guys have been asking and waiting, and she said, and I know that I did, but again, life happens. So just wanted to share that with you. And I will take a minute or two. I do have to wrap up. Like I said, I've got some plans, so I got to get wrapped up, guys. But I'll take a look here in the chat and see if I can answer one or two questions. Um, let's see. There it is. Wait, it's so fun to watch the chat. Just like go, go, go. Thank you guys for being so engaged. I love that. And I do take time to look through the chat at the end of the episode the best that I can. Let me go over here really quick. Oh, Phil, you're so kind. So, so, so kind. For my blushing on the topic. You go, Karen. Thank you so much. And thanks for the laugh as well. And thank you. Thank you also, Wid, for your contribution and being vulnerable to share your experience. My wife cut off sex for 2.5 years. I'm so sorry. And I know you got some support in the chat around that from the other men who have been here. Yeah. After many attempts to placate her needs in order to overcome to be romantic again, I left. Good for you. Good for you to know that for yourself. And now she cries and wants you back. We always want what we don't have, but good for you to do what was best for you and follow your heart of what you needed to do. All right. I'm going to take a quick peek over here. And I did see Luke. Thank you so much. I hope you have a good week too. All right. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Phil. I'll open that after the show for an interview request. Thank you. All right, Evo. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, there's that. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for your patience. I read through the questions. Yeah, there's questions about of really challenging things of happening in a marriage or after a divorce, and how does a man move on from this, and how can I see any woman in a positive light. I recommend you really slow down and you rewatch this episode and you hear the part of this is life. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it's fair. It doesn't mean it's not incredibly challenging and heartbreaking what you are going through. But this is life. And these are the things we go through, that men go through, that there are things women go through, just as humans we go through. And some of it is heartbreaking and crushing and beyond our imagination of what we would experience in life. So you have to make a choice. Do you want to live in Camp Victim? And how do I move on from this? And how would I ever see a woman again in a positive light? Or do you want to live in Camp Take Responsibility, embrace the suck of what's happened and grow and learn from it and make the choice that you want to move on and rebuild? That's the thing. No matter what happens to us in life, not that we don't have a mountain in front of us to climb after we go through some of these hardships and losses, doesn't mean that it's easy. But we always have the choice to rebuild. And that's why I like stories of people who have been through unthinkable tragedies. Such as some of the best examples are people who got into a horrible accident and have become paralyzed and will never walk again, or could be paralyzed from the neck down. And they make a choice, not all of them, but the ones we read about and hear about, that we hear their stories and go, oh my God, could I do that? Who make a choice of, I want to live and I'm going to rebuild myself and I'm going to keep going and I'm not going to let this stop me. You need to find examples and stories of people who have been through extraordinary life circumstances and tragedies and how they rebuilt and moved on, to have the confidence and inspiration in you that you can move on too, and you can heal, and you can make a decision moving forward if you want to see women in a positive light or not. And do you want to live in Camp Victim, or do you want to live in Camp Take Responsibility? That's the choice you have to make, and then recommit to that choice as many times as you need, so that you heal and you grow and learn from the experience. I'm not saying it's an easy choice to make, but it is a choice you have. And if you don't want this to overtake you and ruin your life, then you need to choose to live and can't take responsibility and grow and learn from it. So that's the answer to the 2 questions, Peter, that you submitted. And thank you, Evo, for sending them to me. So I think that's a good place to wrap up and in line with what today was about. Thank you all so much for being here, for all that you contribute, for making this a wonderful place to be on Saturdays. I look forward to it every single time. And I hope everyone has a nice weekend and a good week. And I hope you enjoyed the Q&A format. I like doing this from time to time. So please keep sending in your questions, putting them in the comments, and we will do another Q&A